Homelessness in Illinois has reached an alarming crisis point, with the numbers painting a bleak and urgent picture. The state has witnessed an 18% surge in its homeless population, now standing at a staggering 103,141 individuals. This marks a dramatic 55% rise since 2013 and a 41% jump compared to just 4 years ago. These figures reveal the escalating severity of an issue that transcends statistics and deeply impacts lives. The 2022 point-in-time count, conducted by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, places Illinois as the state with the 10th highest percentage of unsheltered homeless people nationwide. Over half of these individuals, 51.9%, live without adequate shelter, a grim statistic that has surged by 21% since 2020. The lack of stable housing exposes people to extreme weather conditions, safety risks, and chronic health issues, underscoring the urgent need for comprehensive solutions. Cook County, home to Chicago, stands as a microcosm of the broader crisis. On any given night, approximately 69,115 people in the county experience homelessness, with nearly 45%, or 50,085 individuals, living on the streets in vehicles or in other precarious conditions. These numbers reflect not only the scale of the issue, but also the systemic challenges that have allowed homelessness to become so pervasive in one of the nation's largest metropolitan areas. The crisis becomes even more heart-rending when examining its impact on children. The Illinois Office of Homeless Youth estimates that nearly 14,000 children experience homelessness each year. These children face disrupted education, emotional trauma, and a higher likelihood of long-term poverty. Their plight serves as a stark reminder that homelessness is not just a personal tragedy, but a societal failure. The cost of homelessness. In the 2023-24 budget alone, the state committed over $2 billion to housing and homelessness programs, building on the $1.8 billion allocated just 2 years earlier. Yet, despite these substantial investments, the issue remains far from resolved. Between 2018 and 2021, Illinois funneled $4.3 billion into combating homelessness, but measurable progress was elusive. Projections now suggest that achieving an end to homelessness in the state by 2035 could require an additional $27 billion in investments over the next 12 years. Such figures raise important questions. Where is the money going, and how can it be used more effectively? Over the last 4 years alone, nearly $6 billion has been spent in Illinois on homelessness-related initiatives. Local governments received approximately $4.5 billion to implement anti-homelessness strategies within their jurisdictions, while $1.5 billion supported various state-led homeless programs that also bolstered local efforts. These funds have gone toward essential services, such as food, sanitation, emergency shelters, and healthcare, as well as more comprehensive programs, including affordable housing developments, mental health support, and job training. The dual crisis. Chicago, the vibrant cultural and economic hub of Illinois, finds itself at the intersection of a growing homelessness crisis and escalating crime rates. As the city grapples with the realities of housing insecurity and its ripple effects, the statistics paint a harrowing picture of a community under strain. The scope of homelessness in Chicago. Chicago leads Illinois with the highest homeless population, a staggering 69,000 individuals experiencing homelessness, according to the latest point-in-time PIT count. Among them, 29,178 people live unsheltered, exposed to the elements on the streets, while 39,173 reside in emergency shelters or transitional housing. These figures, distressing in their own right, mirror the broader crisis sweeping across the United States, where over 2 million people face homelessness annually. Homelessness is more than a statistic. It is a lived experience marked by uncertainty, vulnerability, and systemic challenges. A lack of affordable housing, rising costs of living, and insufficient access to mental health and addiction support exacerbate the issue. For Chicago, where the median home price stands at $272,400, compared to the national average of $231,600. Homeownership remains a distant dream for many. Furthermore, with median rents for a one-bedroom apartment averaging $1,500, residents find themselves struggling to secure stable housing. Chicago, the state's largest city, allocates over $1 billion annually to address homelessness, focusing on housing-first policies and coordinated entry systems. Linking homelessness and crime. The intertwining of homelessness and crime is a pressing concern. In 2022, Chicago reported 116,364 incidents of crime, reflecting a 5% increase from the previous year. Violent crime, projected to reach 45,000 incidents by the end of 2023, and property crimes, which surged by 13%, underscore a city grappling with safety issues. Residents now face a 1 in 22 chance of becoming a victim of violent or property crime, amplifying the urgency to address underlying causes. While it would be reductive to solely attribute rising crime to homelessness, the correlation is undeniable. Lack of shelter often leads to increased interactions with the criminal justice system, whether through survival-based offenses or loitering violations. Conversely, crime and public safety concerns further stigmatize individuals experiencing homelessness, creating a vicious cycle that benefits no one. The economic burden on residents. Chicago's high cost of living compounds the issue, pushing many residents to the brink of financial insecurity. Take Sarah, a public school teacher earning $61,790 annually, a figure that seems respectable until juxtaposed with the city's living expenses. After taxes, Sarah takes home approximately $4,332 per month, but housing alone consumes 41.6% of her income at $1,800 monthly. Groceries, utilities, transportation, and other necessities eat away at the remainder, leaving Sarah with minimal disposable income or savings. This financial strain is not unique to Sarah. Many Chicagoans face similar challenges, with rent for a two-bedroom apartment outside downtown ranging from $2,300 to $2,800 per month, and even studio apartments downtown exceeding $2,500 monthly. These costs create barriers to upward mobility and exacerbate housing insecurity, particularly for those already living paycheck to paycheck. Illinois' housing challenges are further strained by its high refugee resettlement rates and significant undocumented immigrant population. As of 2021, an estimated 539,700 undocumented immigrants live in the state, up dramatically from just 11,000 in 1990. Many asylum seekers face long waits for case decisions and limited access to employment and benefits, putting them at an increased risk of homelessness. This adds a complex layer to the housing crisis, as limited resources are stretched even thinner to address the diverse needs of vulnerable populations. Affordable housing remains a critical issue. The gap between rising rents and stagnant wages forces many to the brink of eviction. The demographics of homelessness. Homelessness in Illinois reveals a profound narrative of inequality, systemic barriers, and human struggle. It is not merely an issue of shelter, but a reflection of broader societal dynamics that leave certain groups disproportionately vulnerable. Among the most glaring disparities is the plight of Black Illinoisans, who, despite making up just 12.7% of the state's population, accounted for over 35% of those relying on homeless services during the 2022 to 2023 fiscal year. This staggering figure highlights deep-rooted inequities in access to resources, economic opportunities, and social safety nets. While Black Illinoisans bear a disproportionate burden, other communities face challenges that are equally troubling in their own context. Lading's residents, for example, experienced a 23% surge in homelessness between 2020 and 2022, far outpacing the overall 10% increase in the homeless population during that period. This alarming trend points to systemic barriers unique to this demographic, such as language access issues, immigration-related obstacles, and employment disparities, all of which demand immediate and culturally sensitive interventions. In stark contrast, white and Asian American residents are underrepresented in the homeless population, with white individuals comprising only about 20%. This disparity raises critical questions about structural advantages and access to protective social networks and resources that buffer some communities from falling into homelessness. Chronically homeless individuals, defined as those experiencing homelessness for extended periods or repeatedly over time, represent a growing demographic within Illinois' homeless population. Estimates from the World Population Review in 2024 suggest that 26,371 people in Illinois fall into this category, accounting for 21.6% of the state's total homeless population. This marks a sharp increase from 2018 when 8,158 individuals, just 16% of the homeless population, were identified as chronically homeless. The rise points to persistent barriers to stable housing, including mental health challenges, substance use disorders, and a lack of affordable housing options. The demographic data also shed light on age and family composition as significant determinants of homelessness. Single adults dominate the homeless population, accounting for nearly 70% of those affected. Within this group, individuals over 50 make up a striking 43% of adult-only households experiencing homelessness. Older adults often face a precarious combination of limited financial resources, chronic health issues, and diminished social support systems, making it harder for them to recover once they fall into homelessness. Meanwhile, families with children, though a smaller portion of the total, represent 17%, highlighting the far-reaching impact of homelessness on vulnerable young lives. Economic instability is a common thread running through these narratives. Rising housing costs, stagnant wages, and inadequate public assistance have created a perfect storm that pushes many Illinois residents to the brink. For example, the state's median rent has increased by over 15% in the past 5 years, while wage growth has lagged significantly behind inflation. This growing gap leaves low-income families and individuals unable to afford basic housing, forcing many to rely on shelters, temporary accommodations, or even their vehicles.